Absolutism overview. A system of government where the ruler claims sole and uncontestable power. One example of a major ruler was Louis XIV. He dominated in Central and Eastern Europe.
The absolutism of France in this period can all but be summed up by looking at the life of one man, Louis XIV. Louis, at the age of 3, succeeded his father in 1643 and was under the control of his mother and Cardinal Mazarin. Mazarin had to quell numerous revolts by the Francs, who were in dispute with the government over taxes paying for the 30 Years' War. The revolt caused the young Louis to leave Paris with his mother temporarily until order was restored. This began the resentment and distrust of the nobles that he would hold throughout his reign. In the end, Mazarin gained the upper hand for the monarchy and continued France down its path of absolutism. Once Mazarin died in 1661, at the age of 22, Louis immediately began reforming the nation into an absolutist state. His first step was to not appoint someone to be his first minister in Mazarin's place. He then employed artists to help construct the image of him being the Sun King and was portrayed as the Roman god of Apollo, the sun god. He also abolished religious tolerance with the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685 after realizing the importance of controlling religion to secure his title as God's elect on earth. He then began works of grandeur and architectural marvel. At its apex, he built the Palace of Versailles. The construction of the palace was the zenith of Louis's absolutist power and would be the embodiment of the French monarchy's regime for the next 100 years. At Versailles, he forced the nobles to move in so he could keep an eye on them and ensure no revolts could be led by the aristocracy. At home, Louis implemented a bureaucracy to ensure the will of the king would be enforced throughout the state and would continue to antagonize wars, pursue colonial endeavors, and expand French borders throughout his 72-year reign. During his time as monarch, he greatly expanded the king's power, and French absolutism can be easily summed up in one statement by Louis himself. L'État c'est moi, I am the state.
Prussia was a Protestant absolutist country led by the Calvinist ruler Frederick William of Hohenzollern. As the book says, he avoided the ostentation of the French court even while following the absolutist model of centralizing state power. Prussia was ruled by absolutist ruler Tsar Alexei. He focused on building up his army, gaining exclusive political control, and influencing religious matters. Thomas Hobbes was a royalist who argued that absolute authority came from a social contract and not divine right. He was rather pessimistic, believing that all humans are self-centered and therefore need an absolute ruler. The people would have to exchange individualistic values for collective security.
Constitutionalism overview. A system where the ruler shares power with an assembly of elected representatives, provided strong foundation for state power in England, Dutch Republic, and the British North American colonies.
Although absolutism seemed more powerful because Louis XIV could raise large armies and tax his subjects without much consolation, Louis couldn't defeat the coalition led by England's constitutional monarch. Some constitutionalism strengths were rulers sharing power through representative assembly, the English Houses of Parliament, and constitutionalism was confirmed where the government must guarantee certain rights to the people under law. Charles I tried to assert his authority over Parliament and civil war broke out. In 1628, Parliament forced Charles I to agree to the Petition of Right, where he promised to not levy taxes without Parliament's consent. He then refused to call Parliament into session between 1629 and 1640, and religious tension. Archbishop of Canterbury, William Laud, imposed elaborate ceremonies on the Church of England. Laud tried to apply his policies to Scotland, and it backfired. Parliament removed Laud from office and ordered the execution of an unpopular royal command, and abolished the Court Star Chamber. Then repealed recently levied taxes and parliamentary assembly at least once every 3 years. In January 1642, Charles and his soldiers invaded Parliament. Civil war between king and Parliament lasted 4 years. Puritans put aside differences for sake of military unity and united under Oliver Cromwell. Cromwell reorganized the parliamentary troops, and his new model army defeated the Cavaliers at the Battle of Naseby. Charles surrendered in 1646, and Cromwell laid the foundation for Great Britain.
Cromwell abolished Parliament in a military coup and made himself Lord Protector. He silenced cities by banning newspapers. When Cromwell died, he was not succeeded by his son. Instead, Parliament invited Charles II, the son of executed king, to return from exile. Charles made an agreement to announce his conversion to Catholicism in return for money for the war against the Dutch. When James fled to France, Parliament offered the throne jointly to William, along with the power to give offices. Parliament was recognized as a self-contained, independent body that shared power with the rulers. John Locke was a supporter of Constitutionalism and wrote a book called Two Treatises of Government. Locke insisted that the purpose of government was to protect life, liberty, and property, a notion that linked political and economic freedom.
Poland. Nobles dominated. Absolute veto granted the free veto, which deadlocked parliamentary government.
In conclusion, Europe had begun to divide itself into two factions, nations such as France and Russia under an absolutist king who's believed to be God's elect on earth and have full control over everyone and everything, and nations such as England and Poland who believed that the monarch needed a check on power. Soon, ideas of constitutionalism would combine with that of the later Enlightenment and clash with the ideas of absolutism, and again cause Europe to collide into war.